G'day, George here. When it comes to putting together PowerPoint presentations or any presentation for that matter, you've got to think very carefully about the colours that you use in the slides. Now, I'm talking about the design of the slide itself, the background and the colour of the font and things like that, but also the colour of the images and things that you put on there, because colours can have a funny effect on each other in terms of how people perceive those colours. Now, I was reminded of this very recently when I stumbled across this picture. This picture had actually been tweeted by someone, and it's a picture of a dress that was going to be worn at a wedding. And the interesting thing about this tweet, or the controversy that actually erupted from it, was that people started to argue about the colour of the dress. Now, I don't know what colour you actually see, but I see a gold and white dress. Now, depending on the device that you're utilising and the type of exposure that it has, it could result in you seeing one of two colours. If you darken the exposure, you end up with a blue and black dress. If you lighten the exposure, you end up with a very gold and white dress. And this is what people were arguing about. You know, these people saw a blue and black dress and these people saw a gold and white dress. And they're arguing and calling each other all sorts of names. But the point that comes out of this is people's perception of colour is influenced by many factors. Now, is that important in terms of presentations? Oh, you bet, because it can have a huge effect on what people take away from your presentation. Now, to reinforce the effect of colours, particularly when they're side by side, I've got an image here that has got a device in the middle that is effectively grey. Now, it appears as though it's multiple shades of grey, because the question that we want to ask here is the top half the same colour as the bottom half, or are they actually different? Now, if you're seeing this in the same way that I'm seeing it, they're two different shades. The top is much darker than the bottom part. Now, is that affected by light, your perception of that? Well, it is, as it turns out. Because if I draw a line across the centre, I take away where the light and the shadow actually strikes this, what is meant to be a three-dimensional object, you'll see that the colours are actually pretty much the same. So the top part and the bottom part are the same colours, but they're affected by the way the light reflects, or the shade, a shadow, is reflected in the centre part of that image. Now, if we push that black line halfway across so you can see with and without the shadow and the lighting, you'll see what I mean. So it's quite interesting to understand that how people perceive colours is affected by many things, and just because they perceive it in a particular way doesn't actually make it true. Now, this information, right, we talk about this in one of the major mistakes that people make when they're putting together PowerPoint slides and presentations using PowerPoint or Keynote. And what I want to do is just want to give you a little bit of information from that course, which is the Influencer's Guide to PowerPoint, so that you can take away some tips about mistakes that you potentially make with your PowerPoints. So take a look, see what you think.
Okay, poor colour choice is another mistake people make, and the colour choices they make relate to the fonts they use, the background colours, the combinations of highlights and lowlights, how they colour specific individual objects and things on the screen themselves. And poor colour choices contribute to making it very hard to walk away with the message that you want. And you would have seen some of these. In this particular one here, merging NCW with HSI, look at the colours on that. They actually are difficult to kind of get the contrast you need to separate the writing from the background, because they haven't made very good colour choices. Now, what I've done here is just assemble a couple of examples here that I've actually seen used on websites, on web pages. I can't recall off the top of my head any particular websites, but there's a few I've seen that have these types of colour combinations, particularly when they get into URLs and links and headings and things like that. But just have a look at them. Which one is easy to read? The top left-hand one is very difficult to read, right? Purple on red is a shocker. On the right-hand side, light blue on purple, not very good at all. Down the bottom right, is this easy to read? Probably getting closer to it, but there's something about those colours, and so on, right? Poor colour choices is something that we need to avoid. I want to highlight an important thing that relates to colour choices that I can only demonstrate visually here. And this is kind of going to play with your mind. It'll freak you out a little bit because there's no tricks here. You can press pause on this and you can test this in any way that you possibly want to to prove that what I'm saying here is correct. But if you look at the screen there, you've got a checkerboard and you've got a green cylinder on the right hand side casting a shadow over the checkerboard. Now, because of the shading and because of the proximity of things, it's very hard for you to actually ascertain that item A or square A and square B are actually the same color. I kid you not, they are not different colors, they are the same color. But by virtue of proximity and shading and that, it plays little tricks on your mind. It's a hallucination that it's created. And I highlight this when I'm talking about people doing presentations. You've got to be very careful on your color choices, because you might think it's one thing, it actually may come across in a different way. Now, in order to prove this, I'm going to do what I can by just sliding something across the screen and then isolating those two squares, and then I'll reveal it as well, and as slow as I possibly can. But as I said, to prove it to yourself, you can press pause here and you can check this by cutting two holes in a piece of paper and just putting it over A and B and proving that A and B are the same colors. So if I just put the shading across from the left, right, you look at that and you go, oh, that was a trick maybe. But A and B are definitely the same if you look at that particular piece there. Now what that is, what I've put on there is an image that I've just animated very slowly as a wipe from left to right, which has got two holes in it. And those holes are superimposed directly over those squares. If I click it now to take it away, might be a better indication that where I'm actually not manipulating that. A and B are the same color. And the point you want to take away from this is be very careful on color combinations and how colors sit beside other colors, because it can create hallucinations on what they're actually seeing, and people get a misrepresentation.
There you go. That's a little bit of content from the Influencer's Guide to PowerPoint, and it's one of the key mistakes that people make. So what I'm going to do over the course of this month is give you some bits and pieces from that particular course. If you want to get more information about it and read about the topic itself, then take a look at the website. And the website landing page is 9skillsfactory.com. That's 9skillsfactory with the number 9/course of the month. And it will give you some information about that particular topic. So there you go. Catch you in another video.